Super Rugby Round 6 Saturday games. We've got 4 games to look at, featuring teams from all the conferences. It looks to be a good weekend of rugby. We'll start off with Sunwolves Chiefs. So this one's being played in Japan. Sunwolves, man, do they need a win? So no wins, 4 losses, no draws. It is the worst record in Super Rugby this season. They need a result, and having the Chiefs come to town doesn't make things a whole lot easier. They've come close. The tour of South Africa, they had a big loss against the Sharks, and they came close against the Lions, closer than anyone thought they were going to. So there is things to build on, but I mean, with the Chiefs coming to town, yeah, it's going to be a hard one. So the Chiefs, they just need to keep going. They lost their first round away game to the Crusaders. They beat the Blues and they beat the Bulls. They've had a bye in there as well. Still a lot of guys out. Kind of a lot of long-term injuries for them as well. Less guys that can kind of just bounce back after an extra week off. So, but they're still getting decent results. They got a 2-1 record, so 2 wins, 1 loss. They just need to keep it up. They mentioned this game not being a banana skin style game. This is a proper game for them. They're trying to take it seriously. But in terms of their picks, we'll have to have a look because, for the Sunwolves, Tamura is back at 10, which is good because on that tour of South Africa, I think they played Tarakawa at 10, and he's more of an inside centre than a fly half. So it's good to have a proper fly half back. And Fumiaka Tanaka is at 9, the former Highlanders player. So he's pretty good stuff, which makes Captain Nagare on the bench though. Back row of Michael Leach at 6, Eddie Quirk at 7, and Brits at 8. It's a pretty nice looking back row. Competitive in any Super Rugby team really. No Lapis Labiskakni this week though. So I think they've swapped a few of the props around as well. Seems to be a pretty common theme with a lot of the teams this week anyway, is that they rotate the props around. So if you're bench one week, you're starting the next week and vice versa. But I mean, the props usually don't, some exceptions, but they don't usually play too many more minutes than they have to, more than a half anyway. For the Chiefs, Damien McKenzie is back in at 10. He finally gets a shot. I mean, the All Blacks have got him down as a 10, so they want the Chiefs to be playing him at 10, and he gets that. Tian Falcon, the guy who stepped in kind of last minute in a couple of games, he's not even in the squad. Te Toira Te Huriorangi, who is the backup number 9, gets the start, so gets the nod ahead of Brad Weber for the Chiefs. So it's a new 9-10 combination. Talani Seo is back at number 8, and Canadian lock loose forward Tyler Ardron is in the second row. So he's more of a loosey than a lock, but we'll see how he goes. It's good to see this guy get a game. I said in my preview that I was hoping he wouldn't be a guy who just kind of sits on the bench or doesn't get any games, because some of these guys, they come to Super Rugby to try and get a taste of it, and he's getting a taste of it, so that's good. This will be a second game and his first start. I think we all probably accept that the Sunwolves are going to win at some point. We often think it'll be those games at the end of the season when maybe the results don't quite matter as much for the teams who are already out. So there's always the threat that the Sunwolves are going to do one over. I mean, they almost did it to the Lions last week. For the Chiefs, they'll just be hoping kind of it's not this week. It's definitely not going to be easy against the Chiefs. But I mean, the Chiefs have got injuries, so maybe this is the time to be playing them when you're at home. But I mean, I look at them at home, but still they've had a day less rest than the Chiefs, and it's a longer flight back from New Zealand than back from South Africa. So the Chiefs coming from New Zealand going to Japan, whereas the Sunwolves have got to go back from South Africa. So I think it's like 17 hours versus 11 hours. So I'm not sure how much of the home factor they'll get. I guess they'll be sleeping in their own beds from their base in Tokyo. So slight advantage, but I would still, in terms of the travel, give it to the Chiefs. The Chiefs, despite their injuries, are going to be targeting a big win. It is really hosing down here, by the way. I'm not sure if you can hear it. It's really shocking weather, and there's cricket going on at the moment in Auckland. So, yeah, more rugby weather, but the Blues are on a bye. The bookies have got the Chiefs by 24 points. So no one's giving the Sunwolves any credit for that result last week. You know, that bonus point loss to the Lions. For the Chiefs, I mean, I think everyone targets the Sunwolves for a bonus point so far, so they'll definitely have that, and they'll definitely not want to lose. Sunwolves, any points out of the game is a bonus. If you can get a win, massive, but seemingly unlikely. The next game, which is a clash of two teams with pretty good records, sees the Hurricanes take on the Highlanders. So the Hurricanes undefeated at home this season. They've only played one game there. The Highlanders undefeated, full stop. So the only team with a perfect record, 3 wins, no losses, no draws. It's the rematch of the 2015 final. I feel like ever since that 2015 final, there's been a bit of ill feelings between the Highlanders and the Hurricanes, because a lot of those guys are still around. The guys who won it a few years ago. Hurricanes are coming off a bye. They'll want to maintain this record they've got at home. I did a video the other day about winning percentages at home, and this season it's in the 80s, so it's really important to win your home games, because most of the other teams you don't want to be falling behind by dropping games at home. It's the first time the leaders of the New Zealand Conference will travel, and like I said, they want to maintain their unbeaten record, so they'll be targeting this for that. Fafita is out for the Hurricanes. Murray Douglas comes in the second row with Lausey. Fadialofa is on the bench, and TJ Perinara is going to play his 100th Super Rugby match. So big props to him for that. Bodie did his the other day, so did Ben May. So TJ gets his 100. Great servant for the club, and he'll be wanting to mark that 100 with a win. Dixon gets a spot back for the Highlanders after a pretty good game last week. I think he was man of the match, even though he came off the bench. Squire's out, injured. The starting props have been rotated for them, and Josh Ioane, who's kind of a young 10 or 15, is maybe going to get some minutes from the bench. So we'll see how they go in terms of the players. The Canes really need to win this one to get that first spot in New Zealand Conference. So they will leapfrog the Highlanders if they can get this result. For the Highlanders, they'll just want to do the opposite. They want to pull away. So there's been talk about it. I hear it a lot in soccer, football, of it being like a double point match kind of thing. So it's a big shift if you beat someone in your own conference, because not only are you winning, but the opposition is not winning, they are losing. So it's a good chance for you to not only pull ahead but push them down. So whoever wins this match is going to be looking to do that to the opposition and try and not give them a bonus point. I don't think either side would be targeting a bonus point win, but they'll definitely be trying to put enough distance so the other side does not get within 7. Both lineups look pretty strong. Like, you look at the Crusaders, you look at the Chiefs and go, a lot of guys are out. You look at the Highlanders and Hurricanes, obviously not is any squad at 100%? I doubt it, but definitely pretty strong looking lineups. The bookies have got the Hurricanes by 5. I guess that home field advantage counting for more in their eyes than the unbeaten record of the Highlanders. Should be a cracker either way. Third game sees the Stormers take on the Reds in Cape Town. So it's the second week at home for the Stormers, so they didn't do it on the road, but they came back home last week and got a good win over the Blues. The Reds have been basically impressing everybody so far. I don't think anyone picked the Reds to have a 3-win, 1-loss record, and that one loss, as we keep talking about, was with one guy red carded early on. So yeah, they've been impressing. The Reds' travel has been ridiculous. I mean, not only is it's already difficult to go, Australia, Argentina, South Africa, and then back to Australia in like 4 weeks. But because of some mix-up that they had with their yellow fever vaccinations, when they were transiting in Brazil to go to South Africa, they wouldn't let them leave because the guys hadn't had these vaccinations. So they had to fly to London and then fly into South Africa, which just seems like, man, that's a delay you don't need. So they're only 15 hours delayed. 15 hours is a fair bit, but only 15 hours. But that's probably a lot of hours, mostly sitting on a plane. And I mean, I don't know, I'm sure they travel business class, but still, Sitting on a plane for 15 hours is not that comfortable, especially for some of these guys who are rather large gentlemen and chairs made for people a lot smaller. So, yeah, we'll see if that's a factor in this game because, yeah, Argentina to Brazil to England to South Africa is not the ideal travel route. For the Stormers, Dylan Lades is out, so Craig Berry comes in at fullback. Visa's back in the back row. Their props have been rotated as well, with Kits off on the bench. For the Reds, Murphy starts at hooker, so Reedy has dropped out of the squad entirely, with Pangamosa on the bench. Ben Lucas gets a start, Duncan Paoa gets a start, and Higginbotham is back on the bench after having had those 3 weeks suspended with his red card. James Slipper plays his 100th match as well, so another big week for a big player. He'll want to be marking that with a win. Going to be tough going into Cape Town to get a win against the Stormers, but we'll see how they go. The Stormers definitely need the win more than the Reds at the moment, just because you need to win those home games, and they didn't. Like, if you win an away game, you can kind of not take your foot off the gas, but it gives you that bit of breathing room. The Stormers don't have any breathing room, so they need to keep winning. Put the pressure on the Lions as well, because the Lions have not been looking 100% at the moment anyway. For the Reds, they've exceeded all expectations this season, so they're still underdogs, and they've got a pretty grueling schedule, like I was just talking about with the travel. The bookies have got the Stormers by 12, so I think being given a fair bit of credit for that result over the Blues last week. Interesting, if this game had been last week, I don't know if the Stormers would have been a heavy favourite or not, because they'd just come off a big tour of New Zealand where they didn't tour New Zealand and Australia, and they didn't do that well. So, but yeah, the bookies are definitely giving the Stormers an edge. But the Reds have just been grinding out victories, so nothing comes easy in this comp. Final match of the round sees the Jaguares take on the Lions. For the Jaguares, it's just like, man, is this ever going to click? Is it ever going to just all come together and just happen for them? Because it did it for a bit in that game against the Waratahs, but it hasn't done so far yet in pretty much any other game. They've had aspects of their game which have looked good, like the scrums kind of got progressively better, but man, the handling errors last week were atrocious, and they need to improve that, because if you can't hold the pill, you're not going to get any points. For the Lions, I mean, they've been underwhelming in the last 2 weeks. They started off the competition with a hiss and a roar. In week 3, it was just like, yep, it's going to be a Lions Crusaders final once again. They're both smashing it. But yeah, in those last 2 weeks, things have changed. Fortunes have changed quite a lot. So Crusaders have had 2 losses. Lions, a loss and a pretty disappointing win over the Sunwolves. So for the Jaguares, not many changes. Escura is back in the midfield, and yeah, they've swapped a couple of the props around. So it's just a couple of same changes as what seems to be happening with all the teams this round. For the Lions, they've got a few changes as well, but it's probably their strongest team that they've sent to Argentina. They haven't won in Argentina, since the Jaguares came into the competition, because they've, for the last 2 seasons, sent a B team, kind of. But Jens van Rensburg is back at 12, which makes sense. Mostert's back in the second row because Ferreira's out. Cronje is also out, and Adriansa's out, so they're not without their injuries. Brink is back in the back row. Marks is on the bench. So that's his first kind of rest of the season. So Robbie Kurtzer gets a start. Yeah, he's a solid player, so I don't have any problem with that. I'm sure Marks will make a pretty big impact when he comes on. Man, the Jaguares will take a win anyway. A bonus point win, they win by 1 point, a drop goal. However it gets done, they need it. And they need it big time. The handling errors have just been that bad that I want them to get things to click, because, yeah, they're a better team than what they're showing anyway. For the Lions, they need to show us they're still the Lions, because the last 2 weeks have been pretty soft. We know they're capable of better, even though they've had issues with key players being out. They've got a fair bit of depth in that squad, and they need to kind of show us what they can do. Bookies have got the Lions by 8 points, so it will be an interesting one to see. I should have mentioned as well, the Highlanders haven't beaten the Hurricanes since that final in 2015, so maybe that's also why the Hurricanes are the favourites. Chiefs only beat the Sunwolves, I think, by 7 points last season, so it wasn't a real thrashing. So, and I don't think the Reds and Stormers played last season. So, yeah, 4 interesting games. I'm looking forward to it. And because of the scheduling this week, I guess because we're less one game, I will be able to see all these games. I plan my sleep out perfectly, and yeah, I'll get to see them all. So that is exciting. What do you guys reckon? Predictions? Are you going with Chiefs, Canes, Stormers, Lions? The home and away stats I looked at suggested that that's unlikely, but we will see. The Jaguares and the Sunwolves maybe not the 2 best teams so far this season to kind of hold up those, you got to win your home games streaks. So we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys again for the reviews. See you later.